morning, New Song. How are you this morning? Lots of chatting. Happy second Sunday of Easter. In some liturgical traditions, this is known as Holy Humor Sunday, and every year I want to play a joke on you, but I didn't, and I keep mentioning it, and nobody's biting on celebrating Holy Humor Sunday. So if you need a laugh today, because laughter is holy, God laughs and enjoys this experience with us, this relationship with us. So if you need a laugh, talk to my daughter. She'll tell you a joke after service. She has a whole book that she loves to carry around. I don't know that she has it today. I should have made her. But so happy Holy Humor Sunday. I hope that you get the chance to experience that joy of God. And I hope that you get to experience that joy even in worship with us this morning. So I invite you to stand as you're comfortably able and sing with us.
Trust the power of your word, enough to seek your kingdom first, beyond the barren place, beyond the ocean waves. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid.
as I said, good morning. Welcome to our living room. Would you take just a second to turn to the person next to you, greet them this morning? You can even walk across an aisle, go to a different set of chairs, greet each other this morning, hug, high five, handshake. Welcome to those of you joining us online. Maybe look up a video to take a laugh today. Get a good laugh in. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You come at the right time, when I least expect it, never behind. So why would I be surprised when you deliver every time? On mountain tops you stay the same, in valleys low you never change. And I believe that I will sing the goodness of the Lord. Sing it out. I'm confident as seasons change, your faithfulness remains. Oh, yeah. And you go before me to prepare the blessing. You made a way. It's more than I could imagine, more than I can fathom or comprehend. On mountain tops, oh, you stay the same, in valleys low
before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, your praises so alive. So alive. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. You have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you so alive. I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you so the stars were made to worship so alive. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. You send it, so will I, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, oh, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. Chase down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion
Good morning, my New Song family. My name is Lindsay. I'm one of the pastors here, and I have a couple of really important announcements that as a community, we get to do things together, and so I'm excited to reiterate and remind you of some of those things that are going on. And so in about 2 months, on June 24th, 25th, and 26th, we will host our Walkabout, which is our version of VBS. Woo woo! And we are excited about that. Walkabout means a spiritual journey on foot. And so we are all doing that every day. And we want our kids to know the love of Jesus for them as they do that journey together. And so today, right after service, we're going to meet for all leaders and volunteers who are interested in participating in Walkabout in just 2 months. And so this is a really beautiful way, if you have not served before, or if you're curious or want to learn more about what Walkabout is all about, I would encourage you to stay after for lunch. And if nothing else, you get free food out of it. So we'll meet downstairs to discuss what those roles and responsibilities look like, what the purpose of Walkabout is, that it is both fun and it is important for the next generation of faith leaders, what it means to love others as you love yourself and love God. And so encourage you to stay after service. We'll meet downstairs. The other thing I want to reiterate is that our 6K for water is in just 3 weeks from yesterday, on May 17th. And so this is a 6K for water that reminds us that the journey to clean water is not as simple as going to your own faucet or your refrigerator, but that in developing countries, it takes 6 kilometers to actually walk and get water, and sometimes that's clean water and sometimes it's not. And so we are going to walk. We'll start out at SIUE, and we'll walk together as a community. And for every walk that you do, somebody else doesn't have to, because it raises money to provide clean water to developing countries and different communities. And so on your way out, I would encourage you to take a yard sign, put it in your front yard. There's still some out there. And then take a postcard, pass it to a friend. This is such an easy way to invite others into what it is that you believe is important. And so I believe that all of you believe that clean water is important. I know many of you carry water bottles. I myself wouldn't live without it. And so this is an important and easy way for community to gather together on May 17th to walk for water. You can also go to edwardsville6kforwater.org to get more information. And our co-captains, Danielle and Junia, who is 7-year-old captain. And so we want to be able to do this as an intergenerational thing as well. So encourage you to sign up for that. What I'm going to show you in just a moment, so back in January, I got to go to the leadership conference with Danielle. Danielle has been our captain for several years now, has led this initiative, is very passionate about clean water, and I'm so grateful that she's willing to share that with this community. I got to actually witness some of those stories of where these communities are. One of them in particular, the trailer that we're going to show you is just kind of a glimpse into what this plight actually looks like in some of these communities and where your money is actually going. What you won't see in this, I was so inspired, is that this village that they talk about actually now has water. And the reason why they have water is because a group of women said no more. And they weren't able to bring a truck into this village because it was so remote until they built a road to actually bring the truck in to drill for water. And so these group of women actually built a road so that they could have water. And so they are powerful and mighty, and your resources help support those kinds of efforts. And so would love for you to take a look at this video, and then if you have questions or want to know more about it, encourage you to take those next steps. Thank you guys so much.
When I first came to Ramate, it felt like I was in a different world. So dry, so desolate. World Vision works in many places, the most remote areas, but this one was one of the toughest to reach. When I first came to Ramate, it felt like I was in a different world. So dry, so desolate. World Vision works in many places, the most remote areas, but this one was one of the toughest to reach. When I first came to Ramate, it felt like I was in a different world. So dry, so desolate. World Vision works in many places, the most remote areas, but this one was one of the toughest to reach.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. Yes, because I saw it this morning, and it is very compelling. And so I really regret whatever technology is doing to us today. I encourage you to track that one down. You would look under YouTube or Vimeo, World Vision. What's the title of that one? A Long Walk for Water, something along those lines. Yeah, I encourage you to look at it. So as an explanation, a lot of technology that happens in terms of the slides and the video stuff is all automated. And so when the computer decides not to automate or to do its own automation, here we are. We are thrilled that you're with us today, and so we'll continue as we move forward. And so just a sort of a word for the day. How many of you stopped by Artisan on your way in this morning? Okay. Well, I just wonder, how many of us were coffee fanatics? We got fewer than I thought. But you're always welcome, And again, there's always, if you're new in our living room, there's always coffee back here. It may not be Artisan, but it's good stuff. And so we are thrilled that you're with us today. Speaking of something having to do with at least the word art and art itself, I failed to mention last week, this piece that you see here on stage that we used during the Good Friday walkthrough reflection service was created by one of our very own, Jeff Nyheiser, and so he's with us. This is, I don't know if he wants me to point you out or not, but I will. This is Jeff back here, and is a professor of art at McKendree, and so was just very willing and very eager to loan us this piece for use on Friday, and so it's here for a time being, as long as we have a place to have it. He's allowing us to host it. So I'm just so grateful for Jeff and all of you who use your gifts in and out around here. It matters. It brings us closer together in community, which is sort of what we're going to talk about today, engaging our lives in ways that's bigger than just we all gather in the same place week in and week out. So if you're with us for the first time today, we're in the middle of a vision series, and it's ultimately surrounding the idea that we are a church built around the idea of following Jesus. And it's more than language of just sort of, oh yeah, well, so I'm a Christian. There's really some intentionality of what that means. And so it means that we believe in the sort of tradition of the first disciples of Jesus and the whole Jewish culture in its day, that to be a follower of Jesus is to enter into an experience of transformation by committing to three things, to three goals: to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, in order to do what Jesus did. That's the easiest way to summarize what it means to be a follower of Jesus. It's a commitment that has within that journey the capacity and is intended to transform our entire being. And so that's what we're working through in the series that is laying out who we are, where we're headed, what that means for us in the details of simply life beyond the Sunday morning gathering, as significant as this is. What does it look like then for us day in, day out to be part of the family of God, to become more like Jesus, to be like Jesus? And so ultimately, by the way, if you have questions throughout this series, as we do with others, then feel free to pop that into the app through the QR code or through the app itself. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have another Q&R, which is a question and response time, and hopefully address some, if not all, the questions that are still holding back or may come in. To continue to put this on the table as a matter of, this is conversation and discussion always that we have together as we are learning together what it means to be a part of the family of God, to be followers of Jesus in that way. And so the reality we want to continue to jump in today is what we're walking through is how does that transformation happen? So it's called spiritual formation, just to kind of catch you up really quickly. And spiritual formation isn't a religious thing, it's not a Christian thing, it's a human thing. We're all always being formed by somebody. The question isn't, are you being formed? It's what is or who is forming you. All of us are being formed into becoming certain kinds of people by all kinds of influences. And so we're walking through those because they matter. There's basically two paradigms to that. And so the understanding is, for those who are outside of sort of this journey of following Christ according to sort of his way, the way of Jesus, then, or for most of us, essentially, unless we're aware of it, we are being unintentionally formed by the stories that have driven us, formed by the habits that we have in our daily life. They're not necessarily bad things, but they aren't sufficient to bring about the transformation into the image, into the character of Christ, and the relationships that we share. And all of those revolve around the environment that we live in, the culture we live in, where we live, how we live, the people that we live around, and it happens over time through experiences. And so what we're doing is basically taking this, which has been an unintentional way that we've all been formed in some way, perhaps with some intentionality, but trying to understand significantly, with significant detail, what does it look like to be transformed, literally be transformed into the character of Jesus, which is what he calls us to, which is what the disciples in his day expected was going to happen to them. As we look at this model. And so it takes a decision, basically, to replace, we talked a couple of weeks ago, rewriting our narratives, the stories that drive us, rewriting those, reframing those through the context of teaching. In other words, what's true about how life works, the reality of life, the realities that we know and lift up here are God and his kingdom, are the things that never change. The realities that you run into if you go a different direction. And so the stories that shape us require that we reevaluate those. James Bryan Smith, in his book, Good and Beautiful God, says all of us have these stories in us. And for some of us, essentially, these stories are running and ruining our lives. Because we either don't know how that's happening, or we don't take the time to evaluate and see, what is it that causes me to keep making these decisions or taking these steps that just lead to the same place? We're all shaped by story. We can't help it. It's a human thing. And it says, so unless we pay attention, unless we do something about it, they will stay there largely unchallenged until we die. So the first step into transformation is being willing to rewrite the narratives, to reflect on what are stories that are driving me, that cause me to see the world this way, to be in the world this way, to react in relationships, to be in relationships this way, to go about my day living out the stories. The goal is to counter those false narratives with the truth, the reality. And it happens in a variety of ways. It happens here on Sunday mornings. It happens as you read your scriptures, as you read the Bible, as you read other books that talk about, that teach about the reality of God's kingdom, how the world works. Podcasts, mentors, all work there. In our culture, in my experience, in our culture, this is generally all that's expected for a follower of Christ. That the primary thing is you go to church, you sit through a sermon, and maybe you read a few books or read your Bible along the way, and really very few places hold a higher standard of this is how you sort of grow in your faith. And it is a growing step. But let me just say, it is not sufficient for transformation. Sitting under, growing, learning is essentially coming at you through the mind. Learning about the Bible, learning about Jesus is critical. Learning about the kingdom and what Jesus wants us to do is critical, but it's not sufficient for transformation. And so we have to understand that it's bigger than this. Information alone, it cannot lead to transformation. And so then we move on to the next side of this. And so we examine the habits in our lives. All of us have habits, from the simple ones to the more complicated ones, of how we do and see the world and how we engage it just sort of by nature and by rote, because we're habituated beings. And we evaluate those. And so what part of those need to be replaced? And Pastor Grant talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That need to be replaced with practices from the way of Jesus. Things that I might do when I get up, or before I go to bed, or how I pray, or when I pray, or how I talk, and the language that I use, or how I see the world, or how I expend my resources, talents, treasures, whatever it may be, my time, for use of the kingdom. How can I learn to do some simple things now that little by little can replace the habits that I am aware of, don't lead me there, or potentially are destructive? And because that's the way psychology works. That's the way we are wired, is you don't just get rid of a habit, you have to replace it with one. And so the second step in transformation is understanding that we have to put into our lives practices that move us in the right direction, that are forming us in the right direction. It's not a super religious thing. It's not for the smart people. It's for all of us. What can I do with 5 minutes a day to begin to practice something that will continue or bring me back to shaping my mind and my body, my life? Because practices are intended to be implemented, to draw your mind and body together so they're working in harmony for inner transformation. And so you get rid of a habit by replacing it. Teaching's aimed at the mind, practice is aimed at the body. And so maybe, remember, this is sort of how we need to think of it. What we think, we do. What we do does something to us. Again, not always a negative thing. In terms of formation, it's important to understand that what we do is doing something to us. How you spend your money is doing something to you. How you spend your free time is doing something to you. That's not necessarily bad. It's just the way it works. And so we have to reflect and say, am I doing this wisely? In other words, am I sort of the habits that I do throughout my day, the things that I do on any given day, are they leading me to a better life, to what Jesus calls the good life, or the eternal life, or are they potentially keeping me from it? And how do I adjust those? And so today I want to move to this third side of this triangle, the third step in transformation. And it is essentially the transformation from essentially just relationships, and we all are formed by relationships. We're wired that way, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But to reframing our relationships through the lens of community. Community is perhaps the most significant sort of step. It's the third one in the row. They all work together. But this was super powerful, and for us, very significant in terms of what we want you, all of us, to get as we move forward looking to. We're about to have our 20th anniversary, and for us, this last 8-10 months, we've been talking about the reality of this is one of the most significant steps that we haven't maximized to the degree that we need to and want to, and are putting into place sort of actions and thoughts and vision around this. And so we want to explore this a little bit, this today and a little bit next week as Pastor Lindsay comes to share some words as well. Because here's the reality that all of us know, even if you don't know the stats, that loneliness is shooting through the roof since pre-COVID, but let alone COVID and afterwards. The stats are saying that in terms of 18 to 34-year-olds, 30% saying they're every day or several times a week that they feel lonely. 30% of 18 to 34-year-olds. And 35 and up, it's 33% that say they feel lonely and isolated. I mean, those are the stats. So think of it this way. It means that 1 in 3 people in this room feel lonely on a regular basis. In terms of the mental health effects, 81% of lonely adults reported anxiety or depression. 75% lack meaning or purpose. Mother Teresa said, loneliness is the leprosy of the modern world. And it's just growing. To sum it up, the Surgeon General concluded this: we are more connected but lonelier than ever. Does that resonate? In terms of the digital age that we live in, we are more connected than we ever have been, and yet at the same time, we are lonelier than we have been. In other words, the digital connections have a hidden downside. One study at Baylor University says this: while social media offers unprecedented access to online communities, it appears that extensive use, whether active or passive, does not alleviate feelings of loneliness and may, in fact, intensify them. There's a licensed clinical therapist that commented on the Surgeon General's report, and she said this: you may have 1,000 friends, so this resonated, you may have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but how many of those people could you actually call and say, I need to talk to somebody. I'm having a hard time. We are more connected and yet more lonely than we ever have been. And here's the flip side. In 1985, the average American reported having three close confidants. In 1985, the average American had 3 close confidants. By 2004, it dropped to 2. And with growing percentage reporting 0. A growing number of people saying there was no one in my life that I feel close to. So here's the reality. The growing trend in the digital age is to pursue digital connections that we refer to as friends or followers. And on some level, allow ourselves to believe that they are actual relationships when for the most part, they're just connections. And there's a big difference. The result is this. According to Sherry Turkin, wrote this MIT sociologist, psychologist, who wrote a book called Alone Together. It says, digital connections offer the illusion of companionship without the demands of friendship. Our networked life allows us to hide from each other, even as we are tethered to each other. And then easy connection becomes redefined as intimacy. Put otherwise, cyber intimacies slide into cyber solitude. So the question is, what does reframing our understanding in pursuit of authentic, life-giving, life-transforming relationships look like as we practice the way of Jesus? Because it doesn't just happen. If you read through the Gospels in Matthew chapter 4, verses 18-22, you see Jesus going out to gather disciples, and he goes to Peter, Simon, to Simon, his brother Andrew, to James and John, and he calls them to follow me, and they follow him. And later he goes over to, so again, he continues to recruit volunteers to move, and not volunteers, disciples. And we realize that over time, how many apprentices did Jesus call? He calls 12, but he's just getting started. In the end, Jesus has hundreds, perhaps thousands of disciples, but these few that are clearly the ones that we know. Simon and Andrew, James and John are sort of this category of the clear-cut, standard, good Torah-following Jewish boys. They're fishing. They have grown up in this faith. In Matthew 9, Jesus goes to a different place. He goes to the home where he goes to and meets a tax collector called Matthew. And tax collectors, as you know, in their day are considered traitors to their people because they work for the Roman government collecting taxes that are causing their own people, essentially, to get poorer and poorer as time goes on because of the increase of taxation. And this is, in terms of Jesus' actions, this is not a standard rabbinical practice. You don't recruit disciples from traitors. If you remember, at the earlier series, we talked about sort of the rabbinic system and how it works. You reach for, you go and find, or those who are the best of the best, try to find a rabbi who would take them under the wing. Because to be a follower of a rabbi was the highest honor that there could be. To become a rabbi would be the highest goal that any parent would have for their child. And Jesus goes to these good Jewish boys. He goes to this tax collector. And eventually then we meet and see that there's, of these 12 disciples, he has all of them intentionally selected. All of them intentionally selected. But all these distinctions within them. You have Judas, the one who ultimately will betray him. You have one we hear little about. You have Simon, who's the Sicario. Simon is the one. If you're watching The Chosen, you get some you've seen then some of this interaction. You have Simon is the one who is, what's the sect? It's not coming to me. I forgot to write it down. Zealots. Thank you so much. Yeah, Simon's a zealot, which means essentially he's an assassin. That he's a Jewish assassin, and so there were forms. They were called sicarios, which is essentially, sicario was the word for a dagger in its day, and they had hidden daggers, and they would sneak up on Roman officials, slit their throat, and then disappear into the crowd. And that's what they did as the form of upholding their faith. Simon the zealot is called to be an apprentice of Jesus. Matthew the tax collector is called, invited to be an apprentice of Jesus. James, John, Simon, Andrew, Peter, all are called. So you have a political assassin, you have a wealthy traitor, you have James and John, the sons of thunder, as Jesus calls them, which wasn't a good thing in that day. All these personalities, most likely they're in their late teens, early 20s. Can you imagine these guys spending 3 years in close quarters? In other words, continually wrestling with Jesus' subversive teachings and practices. Can you imagine these guys spending day in and day out, meals together, time together, wrestling with what Jesus keeps teaching and moving into from their own lenses along the way? Do you think there would have been tension? Do you think they'd have disagreements? Do you think some of them would have gotten offended at times? Do you think they handled it poorly at times? Answers to all of those would be yes. Because again, they're just, more than likely at best 20-somethings with all these different backgrounds and political views and economic statuses. And sort of this idea, well, you're a traitor to our people and you're one that's killing, and Jesus is saying that's a bad thing. How many conversations, discussions, arguments you think happened? I would say a lot. Part of the point is it's easy to idolize the disciples as we read the scriptures. The reality is, this is a very unnatural grouping of followers, invited and responded to come and live in close community for 3 years, walking with Jesus. Do you think Jesus put together this particular community for a reason? Yeah. Because Jesus' aim was, always is, life transformation. And Jesus understood the critical significance of community as the catalyst and conduit for it. And so let's explore what then community looks like, starting with the definition. We'll think of a community as then intentional relationships around the way of Jesus, as we're talking about what it means to be a follower of Jesus and what that looks like and how we engage that. We're talking about this specifically and simply. Community in terms of people who are gathering with intentional relationships around the way of Jesus. And so these are some of the hallmarks of community, if you would. The first one is this: community is the crucible for transformation. It's the crucible for transformation. That it's a place where the rubber meets the road, where, as you know what a crucible is, where iron or gold or silver is put in it and it's heated up and it's burnt. This is where the heat happens. This is where the different components come together and the heat is turned up to see how they react, so that what is sort of bad in it rises to the top and can be dealt with, and it purifies it along the way. Community is the crucible for transformation. Jesus knew this. And so let's get together, some disciples that have lots of differences and lots of sort of really significant, important differences in how they see and move in the world, in terms of their faith, their culture, their politics, their economics. And let's have them spend 3 years in close proximity. It's one of the most significant attributes, responsibilities, opportunities of community. And so to put it simply, community works that way because it does two things in our transformation. I talked about this just a few weeks ago, but just retouching on it basically. Community does two things. It brings exposure and encouragement. It yields exposure and encouragement. In other words, in community, imagine those disciples, or imagine groups that you're close to, those people that you know you well, that you spend some time with, that this is the place, and perhaps it's your marriage, it could be the work at the office, could be a wonderful long-term friendship, where you realize these people know me for who I am, the real me inside. Like, not for the me that most people see. They know all about me. Because they've seen me in the highs and the lows, when I'm angry, when I'm joyful, when I'm in sorrow, when I'm lonely. The good thing about community as the crucible, that it provides exposure in a safe place, a trusted place. Otherwise, you can't fake character in community. You're known for who you are. It's in those spaces where it's safest to expose what Pete Scazzaro, author of The Emotionally Healthy Church, calls your shadow side. We all have a shadow side, the part of us that sometimes we don't see ourselves. There's a part of us pulling us away from the best life that we actually want to live. That in certain circumstances, driven by certain stories, we react in certain ways that keep us in cycles of self-destruction in some measure. We find ourselves in patterns of living, which just feels like it just keeps coming back to this, and these things keep happening, or I keep saying these things. I keep spending my time or my money, or driving people away, or ending up in this spot. And in community, that gets exposed. And in community, in healthy community, you get called in and not called out. It's there to say, I see all of that in you. I see you for who you are. I see you in the midst of some of your worst decisions or some of your greatest heartaches. And you need to know that you're not alone, that we're with you. That we believe the best in you and for you. Because that's the other side of the sea. In healthy community, the exposure leads to encouragement. And that's what it is. We see you as you are. Yes, you screwed up. Yes, you're here. Yes, you said that again. Or yes, you quit this job as well. whatever it may be. Stories driving us to make decisions that are not helpful or healthy for our lives, and people around us saying, we see, how do we come alongside you to help you shift that practice, to help you think differently, to re-examine those narratives that are driving this. What are they? What causes you to do that? And what practices, what habits need to go to be replaced by practices that can help shape you in the form and the character of Jesus, to move beyond where you are. We see you as you are. We see you where you and what you're going through, and you belong. You are loved. You're enough. And we can do this together. Christopher Smith, John Patterson say this: spiritual formation occurs primarily in the context of community. Long-term interpersonal relationships are the crucible of genuine progress in the Christian life. It is a simple but profound biblical, and I would say human, reality that we both grow and thrive together, or we do not grow much at all. What he's saying is you can't do transformation into Christ-likeness outside of community. You cannot do it alone. It can't happen. Community is the crucible for transformation. Secondly, community is non-optional for apprenticeship to Jesus. It's not an option. If you believe yourself to be an apprentice to Jesus, it is not an option. Oh, you can opt out, but then you're not following the way of Jesus. I mean, it's the whole point of the rabbinic system. 3 years with Jesus. 3 years in this community, as diverse and as potentially heated as it could be, for a reason. Community is non-optional for the apprentice to Jesus. You can't separate your apprenticeship to Jesus from involvement in intentional community, specifically within the church family. A few years back, there was the Barna survey group did a survey among Christians and asking them, what is your preferred method of discipleship? 38%, and it was the largest category, by the way, said on my own. Just me and Jesus. So just know, if you just look at the scriptures, look at the way of Jesus, what you'll find is there is no just me and Jesus. Yes, Jesus is with me, but transformation does not happen with just me and Jesus. It can't. Outside of, if you're alone on an island somewhere and you have no recourse, the Holy Spirit can be trusted to transform your life. But for 99.999% of us, transformation happens in the context of community and not without it. It's not optional. And the narratives of American individualism are one of the greatest threats to apprenticeship to Jesus. Ronald Rolheiser writes this: part of the very essence of Christianity is to be together in a concrete community with all the real human faults that are there and the tensions that this will bring us. Spirituality for a Christian can never be an individualistic quest, the pursuit of God outside of community, family, and church. The God of the incarnation tells us that anyone who says he or she loves an invisible God in heaven and is unwilling to deal with a visible neighbor on earth is a liar. Since no one can love one who cannot be seen, if he or she cannot love a neighbor who can be seen. Hence, a Christian spirituality is always as much about dealing with each other as it is dealing with God. But this is a good thing. Because third, community is non-optional for a well-lived life. You need to be in community in order to experience the transformation in the way of Jesus. Not solely there, but it's the crucible where it all comes together. But it also brings about the best kind of life, regardless of faith, political perspective, age, race, gender, etc. If you are living, breathing human, made for relationships, community is non-optional for a well-lived life. It's how we're wired. It's how we're wired. Richard Plass and James Cofield in the book The Relational Soul say this: at the core of our being is this truth. We are designed for and defined by our relationships. We were born with a relentless longing to participate in the loves of others. Fundamentally, we are relational souls. We cannot exist well without connection and communion with one another. It doesn't matter how introverted or shy or private you are. Coming from, I'm an introvert. I don't present that way here because I love what I do, and this is not a this is an easy thing for me to do without feeling the way. At the end of the day, I'm tired because I love what I get to do. But outside of this, I'm like, if I go into a group of people that I don't know if I'm going, like I took a class a number of years ago at SIU, Jazz Keyboard Theory class, and I sat at the back. I didn't meet anybody that didn't introduce themselves to me. Because it's to me. It doesn't matter whether you're introvert, shy, private life. You need relationships. I need reminders of that because it's easy for me to just be in my own little head, as my family and staff know. We need relationships to thrive. We can't get around it regardless of how you feel about it. You can't get around it. Because it's in your relationships that your greatest joys and your deepest sorrows happen. It's in relationship. The highest highs, the lowest lows. So when Paul says, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, he's saying be with them in the peaks and valleys. Because it matters. And those of us who have been at some point in the valley know the experience of, I need somebody to be with me. You don't have to have answers. You don't have to say anything. If you just come and sit with me. I just know that you're praying for me. I just know that you're there. It matters. It's why we take pictures of people we care about, experiences we have. Why? Because we want to share them with somebody. We enjoyed this. This was so thrilling, and I want to see them, but I want to show others these pictures, to experience life with them, to say, this is part of you seeing and sharing my life with me. We're made for relationship. On the flip side, it's why solitary confinement is one of the harshest forms of punishment. Because the human soul is wired for relationship. Which explains the reactions of toddlers placed in timeout, I suppose. Fourth, community is the byproduct of commitment. I believe commitment grows character. It's essential to the growth of character. I'd put it this way: in a culture that values options and tends to view life through the lens of a consumer as apprentices to Jesus, if what we genuinely want most is the transformation of our character into His, it will require an intentional commitment within an intentional community to the long, slow journey with people we love and trust, recognizing that there's our ideal view of community, and then there's the messy reality of community. And that real transformation happens in the gap, in the space between. Jean Baillet, a Canadian who's started a group called L'Arche, sort of essentially working with those with intellectual disabilities and understanding how to work within groups. He says this: almost everyone finds their early days in community ideal. It all seems perfect. They feel they're surrounded by saints, heroes, or at least most exceptional people who are everything they want to be themselves. And then comes the letdown. Have any experience with that? Be in any church long enough, you'll get that experience, believe me. I'm not condemning anyone. I'm saying it's natural to the human soul. Like how many times people come through here and with best intentions have been here twice and say, oh man, I love this place. And then we don't see them for 2 years. And I know they got stories and they got a place to go and there's other options to explore. And I don't condemn that. I just say this is part of the human nature. But I hope that you'll find them. And so when people leave, they talk to me and say, hey, we want the best for you. If it's not this place, it's okay. We're not the best. We're not the only. We're not in competition with anybody. Find a place. Find someone, a group, a church, a house, whatever you need to connect with and commit to and be part of this journey with somebody. The greater the idealization of the community at the start, the greater the disenchantment. He goes on, if people manage to get through the second period, they come to a third phase, that of realization and true commitment. They no longer see other members of the community as saints and devils, but as people. Each with a mixture of good and bad, darkness and light, each growing and each with their own hope. Which is what I imagine was happening sort of in this arc of 3 years the disciples spent together. At some point at the end, they're like, oh, no, we're all on the same page. And we still have some different ways of seeing and being in the world, but what holds us together is the thing that matters. It's transforming us. And then we can do this journey together. And we are this community of followers of Jesus. He says they accept the community and the other members as they are. They're confident together they can grow towards, I love this, something more beautiful. Community is the byproduct of commitment, the pursuit of something more beautiful that takes the hard work of finding that transformation outside of the ideal, but in the gap, in the space between. Number 5, community takes time and intentionality. I think it's part of one of the reasons perhaps why Jesus uses so many agricultural metaphors about seeds and plants and trees and fruit. Because we all know every relationship takes time to grow. It just takes time. But even a relationship or community that you've chosen to commit to, it doesn't just happen. Just showing up doesn't cause it. Every relationship you have is in motion. It's going somewhere. It's either getting closer or more distant. Because, once again, we're all always being formed by the relationships that we're in. It's always in motion. Changing, becoming we're changing, becoming a certain kind of people. And transformation requires intentional pursuit of community. Courtney Martin, author of Better Off, writing about her experience as in a co-housing project, says this: if you want to live like this with other people, you need only be intentional about asking them to embrace interdependence with you and then ritualize that commitment. You want to be in a relationship of authentic community, of sort of even when sparks fly, working through the transformation, what's on the other side of this, our negotiation and this pursuit of community and interdependence, then embrace the interdependence. Ritualize that commitment. Rather than wishing for intentional community, we have to doggedly pursue it. Make it concrete. Creating communities like these, creating community at all, requires space and time. So, while gathering here on Sunday mornings in this space we call our living room for worship and teaching every Sunday is and always will be a priority because it's a significant step towards transformation. It's still just a step. It's not the whole thing. It's a significant component in our growth as apprentices to Jesus. Even so, we recognize that the kind of community that we're talking about, that we're pursuing, that we are intentionally beginning to shape a new paradigm for here within the family of New Song. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't happen in gatherings like these. It's not designed to. It can't. Because the kind of transformation it can lead to isn't designed to happen in this living room on Sundays as much as in living rooms or coffee shops, libraries throughout the week, as small gatherings of people committed to share their lives and perhaps a meal, journey together as they learn together to rewrite their narratives that are keeping them from experiencing the fullness of the kingdom life. To replace habits with new practices in the way of Jesus, empowered by the Spirit, always at work in and around them. That is what it looks like to practice the way of Jesus. That is and always has been what is required of all those who truly long to be apprentices of Jesus. To orient their lives around being with Jesus in order to become like him so they can do what he did. So let me close with this. If you are not part of a life group, of a group around here, we invite you to seriously pray and consider that. In the fall, we are going to begin a church-wide study, an 8-week study, engaging, inviting people between now and then to sign up for that. That sort of catalyzes this whole series in a way that gives us a structure and a paradigm to say, this is how we intend to then move forward. The vision for how we do life and community together, with enough of a shift, not significant enough that those who participate in it may notice, as much as just the intentionality of how do we do this life together around this triangle of transformation. Spending time in natural conversations where from time to time we're talking about how I'm reframing, rewriting the narratives that are driving me, that I'm beginning to become aware of them. And I can have this space where as I share it, I'm exposed a bit, but I'm called in and not out. Where I'm discovering there are habits that I have that may not be bad, they're just not helpful in my journey to apprenticeship to Jesus. And what can we or I, or we, you and I do together? Or maybe hold my feet to the fire on this thing. I just want to, maybe 5 minutes a day that I want to read the scriptures. And I just need somebody to check in on me and see that I'm doing it. We're inviting you to consider, to prayerfully consider, this is what it takes for transformation. To rewrite our stories with teaching, to replace our habits with practices, and to centralize, to sort of reframe our relationships. Not saying get rid of relationships, just saying center your lives around relationships where, in this community, in this small community, 3, 5, 10, 12, this is our intention together. Here's what we want: to be with Jesus in order to become like him so that we can be the kind of people who can do what Jesus did and transform not only ourselves, but through us and by the work of the Spirit, be part of what God is doing in the world around us. Is that something that would be of interest to you? If it's something you'd like to talk more about, if it's something you'd like to consider, I invite you to email Pastor Grant and let him know. Grant is our pastor of discipleship. He's the one that oversees all the groups, the community groups, life groups that we have. And so we're moving that way. You'll hear more about this then beginning now into the summer, beginning of the fall, actually, at some point in the beginning of fall, once life gets back to routine after vacations. We will implement this study again. That is a curriculum that's centered around these ideas to give us, again, a baseline for this is what the kind of community we need to do in these groups can look like in then expressing itself in just natural conversation. It's not a book to study. It's not a course to follow. It's a way of learning how to do this in ways that just feels natural to who I am and the way that I am with people that I'm growing to love and trust. Our invitation, my invitation, is that you seriously, prayerfully consider participating if you're not already. And if you are, continuing to keep your focus and center on that as we do. Would you pray with me? Father, I'm thankful for your goodness to us. Thankful for your word. Thank you for the wisdom of your scriptures, of the words of the writers, of Jesus, of Paul, of the disciples, of all those who've contributed to the stories that shape us. We thank you for the wisdom that comes through in this simple model of what it looks like to pursue community, to pursue relationships, to pursue our own journey of transformation into your image. Help us see what we need to see. Help us hear what we need to hear, to respond in ways that draw us to you for whatever the next step may be. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you came prepared to worship, we have joy boxes around the walls and online. Grace and peace. We'll see you next Sunday.
There is good news for the captive, good news for the shame. There is good news for the world who walked away. There is good news.